Hello everyone, I hope you all are doing well and having a great night so far. And tonight we're going to be doing a update on Tropical Storm Debby as I'm recording this at 11:50 p.m. Eastern Daylight Time on Monday night, August the 5th. And so still as of the latest update at 10:39 p.m. Eastern Daylight Time, we still do have Tropical Storm Debby, and Debby is still currently over parts of southeastern Georgia and near the coastline of Georgia. And so in tonight's video, we're just going to be mainly looking at some of the impacts from that are to come from Tropical Storm Debby. And we're just going to kind of take a deep dive and look at kind of what can be expected over the next couple of days. And in this update, we're mainly going to be talking about Debby. We will look at the severe weather side of Debby just a little bit, but other than that severe weather side of Debby, we're not going to be looking at any other severe weather besides Debby. So if you are looking for a severe weather update for other parts of the country, it will not be in this video, and I don't plan on making a severe weather video on other systems that are currently producing severe weather, but we're mainly just going to be talking about Debby tonight. So as of the 11 p.m. update, again, Debby is located around southeastern Georgia and kind of near the Georgia and Florida border there. And so Debby is getting closer to coming off of the Georgia coast and going into the Atlantic Ocean. And so at this time, Debby has maximum sustained winds 45 miles per hour, and Debby's movement is at 7 miles per hour. And so here is the current track from the National Hurricane Center. And again, the National Hurricane Center does have it going into the Atlantic, and we'll talk about that more in just a little bit. But it does show Debby going out to the Atlantic and then making a curve into mainly kind of northeast South Carolina there, and maybe making a landfall kind of to the south of the Myrtle Beach area, and really kind of just south of Myrtle Beach and north of Charleston. And so we're really, as I said earlier in this video, we are going to take kind of a deep dive looking at Debby tonight. So just first looking at the cone still, it is expected from the National Hurricane Center to still be a tropical storm when it makes landfall. And we're gonna look at other models. We're gonna look at models and compare them and just see what all may be to come for parts of the southeast. But looking here, going back onto the cone, so we do have tropical storm warnings up along parts of the northeast Florida coast, and then the entire coast of Georgia and South Carolina is under a tropical storm warning. And we do have a small area in parts of southern North Carolina, the southern North Carolina coastline, that is under a tropical storm watch at this time as of the 11 p.m. Eastern Daylight Time update. And so just quickly looking at the National Hurricane Center and looking at some of our main stuff with this, just quickly looking at the key messages for Debby, and this is the 11 p.m. Update, as I've said. And so I'm just going to quickly read some of the major kind of bigger points in this. We do have potentially historic heavy rainfall across southeast Georgia and the coastal plain of South Carolina through Saturday morning, and this will likely result in areas of catastrophic flooding. Heavy rainfall will likely result in considerable flooding impacts for portions of central and northern Florida, across portions of central and northeast North Carolina through Saturday morning. And so this will definitely be one of the biggest topics with Debby, and that is the rainfall that it will, the rain that it'll produce, and the rainfall over the time that it is in and near the coastline and into parts of the southeast. And that's really the biggest concern at this time, other than it just being a forecasted to be a tropical storm. But still, we're going to look at that in just a second. But still looking at our key messages, I'm just going to go ahead and read this one and number 3 real quick. So dangerous storm surge and tropical storm conditions will spread northward along the southeast U.S. coast from northeastern Florida to North Carolina through the middle of the week. Storm surge and tropical storm watches and warnings have been issued for portions of these areas. Residents in the storm surge watch and warning areas should follow any advice given by the local officials. So again, definitely keep up to date with your local forecast offices and officials in your area. And this is just definitely something you should be really watching, especially if you live anywhere on the southeast coast. And now just looking at 3, in portions of Florida where Debby has passed, deadly hazards remain, including down power lines and flooded areas. Ensure generators are properly ventilated to avoid carbon monoxide poisoning. Exercise caution when using chainsaws and power tools, and drink plenty of water to avoid heat exhaustion. So now moving on from the key messages here, we are going to look at, first we will look at our peak surge. So this is just for the Georgia coastline and the South Carolina, South Carolina and a part of the far southern North Carolina coastline. So 2 to 4 feet of storm surge is expected at this time as of the 11 p.m. August 5th, Monday, 2024 update. And so this will probably, I'm thinking that this will probably be upped a little bit as we kind of go into tomorrow and Wednesday. I do think it'll be upped a little bit. And really the biggest thing here, we'll look at our rainfall forecast here. And so into major cities like Charleston that is prone to flooding, right here, 20 to 30 inches of rain is expected in Charleston. That is definitely a big deal. And the rain is starting tonight in Charleston and really across much of the southeast from Tropical Storm Debby. But outside of Charleston, we do have totals from 16 to 20 inches in parts of the South Carolina coastline, much of the South Carolina coastline actually, but around that is an area of 12 to 16 inches of rain expected, and that is all the way just north of Wilmington, all the way down into parts of Savannah, Georgia there. And then we have a larger area around that, and that is 8 to 12 inches expected, and that is really across parts, really starting at Raleigh, North Carolina, and going all the way down into parts of eastern, kind of the southeastern, a little bit of Georgia there. And then around that is an area of 6 to 8 inches, and that is all the way into parts of southern Virginia, all the way down into parts of southeastern Georgia. And around that is a large area of 4 to 6 inches of potential rainfall there. And that's really in much of the southeast, and that extends all the way into parts of the mid-Atlantic and northeast states. And around that again is a large area of 2 to 4 inches, and around that is a large area of 1 to 2 inches surrounding all the other areas. And that really just much of the eastern U.S. Is going to receive some sort of precipitation from Tropical Storm Debby, whether that be the tropical side of it or when it loses its tropical characteristics. But Moving on from the rainfall forecast, we will look at flash flooding, and this is another big thing. And I really won't be talking much about the Northeast really in this video, because it's still just too far to pinpoint any specific details, but mainly just focusing on to the Southeast. We do have a high risk, which is a 70% chance of flash flood guidance being exceeded in an area. And with this pink risk right here, we do have a large pink risk that extends pretty much from Wilmington, North Carolina, all the way almost into the Florida and Georgia border there, and southeast Georgia. Around that is a large 40% risk, and that is at least a 40% chance of flash flood guidance being exceeded there, and that is into a large section of a part of central South Carolina, and quite a bit of southeastern Georgia, into parts of the northeastern Florida peninsula there. And then we do have another moderate risk into parts of the Northeast, and that includes places like Maryland and New Jersey, as well as Pennsylvania there. And then around that is a large slight risk, and that is at least a 15% chance of flash flood guidance being exceeded in that area. And that's really extends just from really Maine all the way down into Florida. So really the pretty much the but the entire eastern coastline there. And then around that is a marginal risk, and this up here is from a severe weather risk, but I won't be talking about that in this video. And then now we'll be looking at the Storm Prediction Center real quick, and then we will move on to the weather models. So now looking at the Storm Prediction Center, and again, we're not going to be talking about the slight risk and marginal risk in two parts of the Midwest, as well as this marginal risk out here into parts of the northwestern U.S. We'll be mainly talking about our risk down here in the Southeast. So we do have a slight risk here, and that includes places like Charleston and Savannah, Georgia, and Charleston, South Carolina. And then a marginal risk around that, and that includes places like Jacksonville, Florida, and then that includes parts of northeastern South Carolina. And so apart from there being obviously a wind risk with this, it's not included in the severe risk with this, but a tornado risk is with this, and that is responsible for that marginal and slight risk, and that is a 5% right here into where the slight risk area is, and a 2% surrounding that area there. And then moving on to the Day 2 outlook, and that is for tomorrow on Tuesday, August the 6th. And we do have another risk here, and this is a marginal risk, and that extends from pretty much Savannah, Georgia, all the way kind of south of Wilmington, really to the South Carolina and North Carolina coastal border there. And we do have a 2% tornado risk with this, and no wind or hail risk with any of those, besides there obviously being a wind risk with the storm. And then going on the Day 3 outlook, and that is for Wednesday, August the 7th. And we do have a marginal risk here into parts of the southeast coast of North Carolina and parts of the the northern coast of South Carolina. And we don't have a level 1 through 5 risk with this yet, because it is Day 3, and anything Day 3 and beyond usually does not have any, or usually the risk Day 3 and beyond do not have a 1 through 5 risk like they usually do with a Day 1 or 2 risk. But we do have a 5% risk here for our Day 3, and the 5% risk for the Day 3 usually stands for a marginal risk most of the time, and a 15% slight risk, 30% enhanced, and so on. but we do have that 15% risk there into parts of the southeast. Now looking at the weather models here. So first we're going to be starting out with the 18Z GFS. I'm going to refresh this really quickly, see if the 0Z. So the 0Z is coming out now, and so it's at 108 hours. So we'll go ahead and use the 0Z run on the GFS. And so what we'll really be doing from now on out to the end of the video is comparing the models and seeing how the models really look against each other, and just compare them and to see what they favor and what they show similar. And so first starting off with the GFS. So looking here, we do have our storm here. Here's Debby showing up on the GFS. And so as we get to tomorrow on Tuesday, it shows Debby kind of wobbling off the coast and then finally getting off the coast of Georgia and South Carolina, and then strengthens a little bit into a pretty much a stronger tropical storm, and then it has Debby pushing back into Georgia there and making a landfall there. And so the GFS has been really consistent on showing this the past few runs. So we'll go to 84 hours, and I'll just show you the past few runs real quick. And so as you can see, the GFS has been pretty consistent on showing this. And do I think this is personally what's going to happen? No, I don't. But the GFS has been showing this. I mean, the GFS is I would say it's a pretty reliable model when you're looking at tropical weather, but it's just been one model that's kind of been doing its own thing compared to the other models. So just take that into consideration there. But I don't think this is I don't personally think this is what's going to happen with Debby. But now we'll look at the European model. And so we'll actually look at the 12Z European model, which goes out a little bit further than the 18Z run, but we will look at the 18Z run in just a second. But looking here at kind of a pretty similar scenario here, it gets Debby off the coast of Georgia and South Carolina, and then it does make that turn kind of to the north a little bit and continues to wobble, and then it pushes it up northward, and then it heads right towards northeast South Carolina and southern North Carolina there, and makes kind of a landfall near the Myrtle Beach area. And so this is pretty similar to what the National Hurricane Center's cone of uncertainty looks like, but it does not have it getting above a tropical storm. It stays at a tropical storm, really on to the GFS, and as well as the National Hurricane Center does not have it reaching a hurricane as of the 11 p.m. update tonight. And so it does show this, and then it moves up into the mid-Atlantic and northeast. And then looking at the 18Z run, and this doesn't go as far out, but same thing as we were just showing you, and it does have it wobbling out and just kind of really, I mean, you could call it wobbling, but it pretty much stalls out into parts of the right off the South Carolina coast. And this is again a very big problem that will be this is going to be a very big problem with it stalling out and dumping a bunch of rain onto parts of the South Carolina coast. I mean, even farther inland, you're still going to have very heavy rain. And so it does, the 18Z run does show it kind of a little bit, I would say a hair farther to the south than what the 12Z showed. And then it shows it going into South Carolina and North Carolina, and again, kind of going north into the mid-Atlantic. And so again, we're going to have to watch this and just see, and really, I would say tomorrow on Tuesday will really be the big day, just to see how it strengthens. Really, Tuesday into Wednesday will be a big day to watch and see how it acts over the Atlantic. And see if it strengthens or maintains its strength, and hopefully it does not strengthen a lot. But I mean, it is forecasted to strengthen a little bit, but again, hopefully it does not strengthen too much and it just remains a tropical storm upon landfall. And so now we'll look at the Canadian model here. And so the Canadian model usually doesn't show kind of as strong as other models. It does show most storms a little bit weaker than they are, and so it does kind of have the same track, but again, it's kind of hard to tell because it does show it a little bit weaker, and so the low pressure is going to kind of waffle around, and it's harder to tell exactly where it would be upon landfall. But again, it does have it charging into South Carolina and then moving off to the north into the mid-Atlantic. And so now moving on from the Canadian, now looking at the Icon model, and this is a model that's it does show the worst case scenario out of most of the models that I've been showing y'all, or really all of the models that I've been showing y'all. And so it gets off of the not really off, but it actually gets it stalls out even more, really, at the Georgia and South Carolina coast. And so then it kind of juts out to the east here, and then it gets pretty far, not pretty far, but farther out than most of the other models have been showing. And so it gets it, and then it strengthens it quite a bit, and it puts it into South Carolina and probably has it at I would say, a strong tropical storm or a low-end Category 1 hurricane. And so it does charge it up here into North Carolina too, and again, it dumps a lot of rain and moves on out. But I did forget to mention this is a 0Z run, but thankfully it's weakened a little bit, showing up on the Icon, because on the 18Z it showed it pretty strong and moved it into the Myrtle Beach area, kind of at a pretty strong, I would say, Category 2 hurricane right there. And so this will definitely be the worst case scenario, but it has been very consistent on showing a landfall kind of in this area right here into parts of South Carolina. But on the latest 0Z run, it has kind of converged, and it's definitely in agreement with the European, and the European is also in agreement too that it will kind of make a landfall, I would say, into possibly South Carolina. So the good thing is it does show it quite a bit weaker and does not show a Category 2 hurricane, but it does show that pretty strong tropical storm to a basically a Category 1 hurricane there. So we'll have to keep watching this and see how the models really go tomorrow. And really, I mean, the farther east it can get, Debby can get out into the Atlantic, the more time it will have to re-strengthen, and then make a stronger landfall. So again, we'll just have to keep watching it, and we'll quickly look at the hurricane models real quick. We'll look at the HWRF model, and we'll see if so it's just the 18Z run that is up right now. And so looking here, it does have Debby expected, as we've been looking at, to go off the coast of Georgia and South Carolina. And this run particularly has it going following the GFS actually, and pretty much plunges it back into Georgia or into southern South Carolina. And then we'll look at the HMON, or the HMON model, however you want to say it. But still, it kind of shows a similar thing here, and it kind of moves it to the west, and then it does go back a little farther. It goes west pretty far, like on the GFS was showing, but it does show it farther north, and this kind of It's kind of split, I would say, in between the GFS and European. It doesn't have it as far north, but it doesn't have it as far south. So I would show you all the 0Z run, but it is not out yet. So I'm thinking really it's gonna trend north with the next run. And then real quick, we'll look at the HAFSA model here, and same kind of deal here. It kind of wobbles off the coast of Georgia and South Carolina, and then plunges it really kind of like a South Carolina landfall right there, and then it just has all that rain surrounding that. And this is a lot more. This looks like a lot more like the European run and the Icon run. So personally, I do think that we will have a landfall back into South Carolina, and I mean, there's a small chance of it being North Carolina, but I do think we'll have a landfall again into South Carolina. Will it be a hurricane again? I don't know. We'll have to keep watching it, but I do know for sure that it will definitely be a pretty strong tropical storm upon the next landfall. So that'll be pretty much it for the weather models. We're going to look at our short range models here, just with the HRRR and the NAM, 3 kilometer NAM, and probably the 12 kilometer NAM. But just for right now, looking on the HRRR, the HRRR and the NAM don't do great with tropical systems, but they do can't even talk. They usually are okay at just kind of looking at, for an example, and seeing what just kind of comparing to other models. But for this system in particular, it does kind of for Debby, it does favor a European and Icon model track, and does have it making the HRRR does have it making a landfall probably in northeast South Carolina or southern North Carolina. And so this is pretty far out on this run, so it's definitely going to change with the 06Z run. But now looking at the 3 kilometer NAM, and it's pretty similar, and it does have it wobbling off and then strengthening a little bit and having a landfall into probably just kind of the, I would say, northern half maybe of the coastal the northern half of coastal South Carolina. And so again, it does favor that European or Icon run, the runs we've been looking at. And then just quickly looking at the 12 kilometer NAM here. Again, the same thing, same scenario. It does have it plunging into South Carolina and making a landfall in South Carolina, and then going into North Carolina there. So really, that's about it for looking at weather models. Really, there's not much more to look at in the weather models because there hasn't been anything else to come out yet. But still, we'll just have to be watching the models for sure over the next day, really, and watching Debby as she gets out into the Atlantic. And so just very quickly looking at our excessive rainfall forecast. So we did look at this earlier, but it wasn't the single day outlooks. It was all 5 days grouped together, and you could see the total amount that spanned all the way into the northeast and then into the southeast. So just looking at this day by day really quickly, we do have a high risk here, and this is from Monday night all the way into early Tuesday morning. And so around that is a moderate, a slight, and a marginal risk. And this is the same as we talked about earlier, high at least 70% of rainfall exceeding flash flood guidance. Same with the 40%, same with the 15 and the 5 with a slight marginal high and moderate. And so this is just for day 1, and then looking at day 2, which is Tuesday morning through Wednesday morning, we do have a large high risk here into parts of southeastern Georgia, into quite a bit of coastal South Carolina, and then into a small section of southern North Carolina. And then on day 3, we do have another high risk, and that is into parts of southern North Carolina and much of the South Carolina coast, and a moderate risk around that. And around that is a slight and marginal risk all the way up into the Northeast and Mid-Atlantic. Day 4, a moderate risk across much of quite a bit of South Carolina, most of the South Carolina coast, and quite a bit of the North Carolina coast, and then into a small section of southern Virginia there, and around that is a slight risk and a marginal risk around that into the Northeast and Southeast. Then looking at day 5, we have a large slight risk here all the way from Maine and then into South Carolina, North Carolina, and then a marginal risk surrounding that slight and then into parts of eastern Alabama, Georgia, and South Carolina, and then along all these states here into the Mid-Atlantic and parts of the Northeast. And now finally looking back at Debby, and we're looking on Zoom Earth, and this is with the National Hurricane Center's cone of uncertainty. And so right here we do have Debby, and this is at the 11 p.m. update still. And so we do have Debby right here. And so this is the cone right here. I know I showed this earlier, but still the Icon, Euro, and some of the other short-range models again do show that the track and landfall kind of being into South Carolina or maybe southern North Carolina, but mainly with South Carolina being the main area of interest for that landfall, secondary landfall, that is. And so again, the National Hurricane Center does have this reaching a high-end tropical storm, kind of a mid to high-end tropical storm. And so this I do think this will be updated, and I do think that the National Hurricane Center will put this at a higher end, not a high end, but a higher end tropical storm, just under a hurricane. But again, we'll have to watch tomorrow. I've said this probably 100 times, but we'll have to watch tomorrow just to see how Debby is once she gets out into the Atlantic, how far east she'll go. The farther east, as I've said, that'll be bad news, and she'll have more time to re-strengthen. And I do think the farther east Debby goes, the farther north she will go too. So again, we'll have to keep watching this. I know I said that 100 times too, but just definitely keep up to date with your local forecast offices. That's really going to be it for tonight's video, and there's the cone there showing up. But that'll be it for tonight's video. And I do appreciate all of y'all watching, and I do appreciate anybody, or not anybody, but all of y'all who do stick around to the end of the video. I do appreciate it a lot. And again, I know I said this a lot too, but I am trying to improve my forecast as much as I can, and I haven't done one in a while. This is my first one I've done, so I know it'll be kind of sloppy. So, but I may try to do another video tomorrow, maybe tomorrow, or I would say by Wednesday I might have a video out, but I may make a smaller video instead of a longer one like this one. But again, I do appreciate all of y'all who do watch my videos. I truly appreciate it, and I'm definitely gonna continue to work on my forecast and make sure they're easier to watch, not so back and forth on everything. But if I miss something important that y'all might have that y'all wanted to see, just let me know in the comments. Definitely, I'm open to feedback of any kind, good or bad. But that'll be it for this video, and I do hope y'all have a great night, and I do hope y'all stay safe in any of the areas that are affected, that has been affected by Debby and will be affected by Debby in the coming days. And I hope y'all have a great night.